Soul of the Earth. Chapter 5. A New People, a New Planet. The moon fell silent. No further messages followed. No new transmissions. No ships appeared in the sky. The voice that had filled the minds of every living human vanished, like breath in cold air. There were no declarations of alliance, no conditions, no treaties. Just silence. And one gift. The day after global contact, something changed beneath the surface. All across the world, dormant chambers opened, some buried under mountains, others beneath the ocean floor. They released nothing but light. Pure, harmonic light. Within days, the new systems were discovered. Not weapons, not starships, just tools. Schematics appeared in council data networks encoded in resonance patterns. Instructions emerged in the minds of those prepared to hear them, not in words, but in clarity. Engineers understood materials they'd never touched. Scientists dreamed equations they had never studied. The message was clear. We will help you heal, nothing more. In the years that followed, more changes took place. Atmospheric cleansing arrays were activated in key regions. The sky began to lighten. Massive turbines reshaped polluted air into breathable oxygen. Soil memory was restored, using harmonic frequencies that woke the microbial life within. Water purification systems dissolved toxins at the molecular level and returned entire river systems to clarity in months. Energy grids shifted over time. Coal plants went dark, refineries powered down, nuclear facilities ceased operation, not forcibly but irreversibly. In their place rose harmonic resonance nodes, quiet, glowing towers that drew power not from extraction, but from tuned fields beneath the Earth's crust. There were no moving parts, no fuel lines, no emissions, just balance. The alien presence was nowhere to be seen. No beings stepped forward, no machines hovered overhead. They had delivered their final offering and withdrawn into silence. The moon no longer hummed with warning. It pulsed like a heartbeat, distant but steady. Humanity had been given one last chance, and this time there would be no interference, no more visits, no more missions to the moon. Launch systems were permanently disabled, satellites near the lunar orbit powered down, attempts to breach the threshold of orbit beyond Earth's immediate field were quietly refused. Rockets failed to ignite, guidance systems drifted off course. Not by violence, by refusal. As if the sky itself had turned them away. You are not ready for the stars. Heal what you have broken first. On Earth, governments held emergency summits. Debates were short. There was nothing to bargain for. No negotiating table. Just the reality of change. They could either work with what had been given or be left behind. The council voted unanimously. The technologies were deployed globally. No patents, no ownership, no military applications permitted. Harmonic engineers and environmental stewards became the new elite, not in wealth, but in trust. Their role was not to rule, but to restore. Across the world, for the first time in history, humanity accepted a gift it could not exploit. It could only use it wisely. The alien presence vanished as quietly as it had arrived. There were no follow-up messages, no ships in orbit, no beings stepping forward with blueprints for a new society. The technologies left behind, soil restoration nodes, atmospheric harmonizers, and clean energy towers, sat inert, waiting for human hands. They would not activate on their own. They required intention. The choice, as the message had promised, was entirely ours. At first, nothing changed. The systems of the old world continued out of habit. Drills turning, tankers shipping, markets opening and closing as if nothing had happened. Some governments dismissed the silence as a pause. Others waited for further instructions. None came, but gradually momentum began to shift. Local communities were the first to act. In rural India, farmers installed the first resonance-powered irrigation grid. In coastal Chile, fishermen restored entire marine ecosystems using the soil-cleaning lattice. In northern Canada, a network of school children and retired engineers lit an entire township using a single harmonic tower. The results could not be ignored. Clean energy, no pollution. No moving parts, no cost. Within 5 years, cities began voluntarily unplugging from fossil fuel infrastructure. Power plants were decommissioned by collective vote. Pipelines were abandoned, not by law, but by irrelevance. Vehicles and factories were refitted with community-made converters derived from resonance models. Within 10 years, global oil demand had dropped to a fraction of its former peak. Mining followed. The need for rare metals and extraction industries collapsed as new technologies emerged using repurposed natural elements, not alchemy, intention. Humanity simply began asking different questions. What can we build that doesn't take more than it gives? The shift took time, but it was steady, and it was ours. The economic system, long tied to exploitation and accumulation, began to unwind. The Council facilitated the transition, not with power, but with clarity. It issued no currency, it redistributed nothing, it simply made information available, truthfully, globally, and without hierarchy. People responded. By the second decade, communities around the world had adopted a contribution-based model. Work became defined not by hours, but by impact. Jobs that restored ecosystems, educated children, healed communities, or supported balance were valued above all. Wealth lost its weight. The financial elite were not dismantled, they were absorbed. With nothing left to own, with no system left to rig, their power evaporated. Some resisted, most rejoined. Their influence became memory. Artificial intelligence, freed from corporate shackles, assisted with logistics, resource distribution, and infrastructure rebuilding. It made no decisions. It served the human will. What mattered most was this: everything that changed, changed by human choice. The alien tools waited, humanity picked them up. No miracles, no resets, just the long, slow rise of a civilization choosing to become something better. By the end of the third decade, cities had become restorative. Biodiversity returned, clean water flowed freely, food was abundant, decentralized, and local. Not because it had been handed to us, but because we had learned to listen, to learn, to try. Above us, the moon remained silent, watching, but no longer intervening. The collapse of religion did not come by force. No laws were passed, no doctrines were banned, no institutions were burned. There was no war between faiths. There was just silence. After the global message, the voice that spoke in every mind, in every language, at once, the sacred texts no longer held the same power. For thousands of years, humanity had fought, divided, and sacrificed in the name of what was unseen. But now the truth had been revealed, and it had not come from heaven, it had come from within. The voice that spoke had not asked for worship, it had asked for change. Temples, churches, mosques, shrines, all remained standing. But people stopped attending, not from anger, but from awakening. The rituals felt hollow now. The stories, once wrapped in mystery, now echoed with misinterpretation. What once felt divine had been something else all along, memory, distorted by time and myth. The God who parted seas was a watcher trying to protect. The angels with shining faces were scientists wrapped in resonance fields. The floods and skyfire, judgments and prophecies, were all echoes of real events, real interventions, real warnings. And so the old faiths faded. What rose in their place was not atheism, it was reverence, not for a deity, but for design, for the earth, for consciousness, for the profound realization that life itself was rare, that intelligence was responsibility, and that survival required alignment, not submission. In place of sermons, there were dialogues. In place of altars, there were gardens. In place of fear, there was humility. The temples became sanctuaries of learning and restoration. Monasteries were reopened as ecological research stations. Churches became communal kitchens and seed libraries. The symbols remained, but their meaning changed. No longer divine authority, now planetary stewardship. A new worldview began to form. It was not written, it had no central figure, no sacred book, no prophecy, but it spread. At its heart was a single understanding. Earth was alive. Its systems were not just physical, they were sacred in their complexity, in their balance, in their generosity. And we were not above them, we were part of them. The moon, still overhead, pulsed like a second heartbeat. Not a god, not a throne in the sky, a memory of what had come before and a reminder of what could come again if we failed. Children were taught differently, not to memorize verses, but to listen, to understand systems, to trace the history of language, of the body, of the land itself. They learned how stars were born, how rivers shaped civilizations, how stories could preserve truth or distort it. They learned that belief was not power, understanding was. And from that understanding came a new kind of spirituality, one rooted in balance. The age of religion had ended. In its place, humanity found something older and perhaps more sacred, the reverence of knowing we are not alone, and that the responsibility of being alive is the most profound truth we've ever been given. It did not happen all at once. Balance was not a moment. It was a direction. But by the close of the third generation since contact, Earth no longer resembled the world it had once been. The skies were clear, the rivers ran true, the forests had returned, not as monuments to what was lost, but as living systems, breathing in tandem with the people who now lived among them. Cities became ecosystems, not artificial forests or sterile utopias, woven spaces, alive with birdsong and rainwater, pollinators and solar vines, moss-covered towers and gardens on every roof. Roads gave way to footpaths, power lines became relics. Noise was no longer constant, the hum of the earth had returned, and humanity had learned to quiet down enough to hear it. People still worked, but the work had changed. They taught, they tended, they restored, they learned. The concept of career had dissolved. So had the hierarchy of labor. A person rebuilding coral was valued the same as one teaching planetary physics. Food was local, energy was free, waste was nearly non-existent. Progress was measured in restoration, not expansion. Violence had not vanished, but it was rare. Without competition for resources, without hunger, without systemic inequality, the roots of most conflict had withered. There were still arguments, still heartbreaks, still difficult days, but war, as a concept, no longer made sense. Education was the anchor. Every child learned the old world first, not to repeat it, but to understand it, the mistakes, the myths, the systems that once ruled everything. Then they studied the language of the earth, hydrology, ecology, sound harmonics, planetary memory. They studied resonance, and they listened. The moon remained above them, silent. It had offered its gift and withdrawn. The machines beneath the ocean remained quiet. The alien presence had not returned, but humanity knew it was still there, watching, waiting, trusting. The moon no longer symbolized mystery, it symbolized responsibility. Religions had faded, reverence had taken root. In shared spaces across every land, people gathered to reflect not on gods, but on purpose, on beauty, on stewardship. They celebrated solstices, migrations, harvests, and births. They honored death not with grief, but with gratitude. The planetary council remained, but it no longer governed. It guided. It curated knowledge, resolved disputes, maintained harmony between bioregions. No single nation held power. Nations themselves had blurred. What mattered was place, community, balance. The age of conquest was over. This was the age of return. Earth had been reset by choice and memory. The The species that once teetered on the edge of extinction had become something new, not angels, not masters, stewards. They had not saved the world, they had remembered it, and in doing so, they had remembered themselves. Above them, the moon continued its orbit, silent, constant, unblinking. Watching. 3 generations passed. The earth had healed. The forests were vast again. Rivers had redrawn the land in clean, gentle lines. Coral cities grew below the waves. Migration patterns returned. Species long thought extinct quietly reappeared, welcomed home by a world no longer hostile. Humanity had changed. Children were born into balance. They did not inherit collapse. They inherited curiosity. Their history classes began with ancient myths, then explained where the myths came from. They studied the rise and fall of cycles, of Atlantis, of the Second Age, of the silence that came after, and of the voice that once spoke to all. For decades, that voice had been silent. The moon remained overhead, steady and quiet. The council kept watch. The alien system still functioned, still tuned to the Earth's rhythms. But no further contact came. It seemed the architects had truly withdrawn, until the night the signal returned. It was not dramatic. There was no sky fire, no mass broadcast, just a single tone, heard only by the council, a harmonic resonance, unmistakable, a message embedded in a pattern, simple, quiet, and clear. You have healed your world. You are ready. The following weeks brought new instructions, nothing overt, just data, schematics, coordinates, designs for vessels not meant for domination, but for defense, for understanding. The message continued. There are others. The galaxy is not empty. Some civilizations are peaceful, some are not. We do not participate in the Galactic Council, but we know of it. Your world is remote, overlooked. That has kept you safe. It will not keep you safe forever. You must be prepared. And so humanity learned again. They built quietly, carefully. Ships designed not with weapons, but with fields, tools to deflect, to cloak, to protect. Not for war, for sovereignty, for survival. They tested interstellar engines not in public, but in silence. Earth did not announce its readiness. It listened. It learned. When it finally stepped beyond its atmosphere again, it did so with caution, as merchants, as observers, never revealing its full capability, never forgetting the cost of arrogance, not out of fear, out of wisdom, because this time Earth had been given a second chance, and it had earned the right to keep it.